There's something to be said about a video game that actually makes you care about the characters and become invested in not just the overall plot, but the little things that happen in the world it creates. Few games I actually feel really pull that off consistently. Some characters might pop up for a little while and actually be important, but in the long run, you don't really care about that character. You don't feel anything for them. However, there are games out there that sink their claws into you with a brilliant narrative and convincing characters that players can really connect with. Honestly, I can really only name a few games that truly accomplish this. One of those may be very well the most important game I have ever played. I'm speaking, of course, of the first Lunar game from Game Arts and Studio Alex. Lunar the Silver Star was originally released in 1993 for the Sega CD and was remade for the Japanese Saturn in 1996 as Silver Star Story. That version was later ported to the PlayStation in 1998. That PlayStation port eventually made its way to the States as Silver Star Story Complete in 1999. The Silver Star was remade twice more after that, with Lunar Legend on the GBA in 2002 and Silver Star Harmony in 2009 on the PSP. With a plethora of remakes and versions to choose from, Silver Star is the most accessible game in the Lunar catalog. In 1995, a direct sequel to Silver Star was released on the Sega CD. Lunar Eternal Blue saw the same remakes on the Saturn and PlayStation the years following as well. There's also a spin-off game and a less than stellar DS prequel that most fans of the series would absolutely love to forget ever existed. So what's the appeal behind Lunar? Maybe you've heard about it, but you're not too sure why people maybe ramble on about how good it is. For me, Lunar is the first RPG, if not the first video game, that made me feel something for the characters. It was the first game that made me get invested in the success and sorrow of each of the characters. With all the different versions of this game out there, I want to talk the most about the first remake we got here in the States. Lunar Silver Star Story Complete, localized by Working Designs in 1999. Alex Noah is a young man from the remote village of Berg, one of two villages on Caldor Isle, and the birthplace of Dragon Master Dine. The Dragon Master is the sworn protector and hero of the goddess Althena, the loving deity of the people of Lunar. Berg holds a festival in her honor every year, and the cities of the world are littered with statues of her for the people to pray for her blessings. Berg, being Dine's birthplace, also has a monument in his honor that Alex stares at every day. He's been enthralled with the stories of the Dragon Master since he was a child and dreams of one day following in Dine's footsteps. But he knows that adventure just doesn't fall out of the sky in Berg. Alex has several friends in the village of Berg. Nall, a flying white cat-like creature who is obsessed with fish and is constantly hanging off Alex's shoulder. Ramus, the son of the mayor of Berg who dreams of hitting it rich through various plans and schemes. And Luna, who lives with Alex and his parents after being brought to them, along with Nall, from a friend of Alex's father many years ago. Luna and Alex have a special bond, being more than just friends or foster siblings. They play music in the festivals honoring the goddess Althena together, and have a connection the people of Berg can't help but admire. Luna's singing voice has captured the hearts of the townsfolk, and it's only complemented by Alex's instrument playing. The game begins when Ramus finds Alex at Dine's monument and has a proposal that sets off their big adventure.
Now that the warm weather has melted the ice near the Dragon's Cave, there isn't any time to waste getting started on our big adventure. If we hurry, we may be able to sneak in without waking the dragon. Then we can get a fantastically huge diamond from its lair worth thousands and thousands of silver, making us filthy, stinking rich and very popular in the process!
Alex and Nall agree to help Ramus venture to the White Dragon Cave near Berg to collect a priceless diamond from the cave. Luna is not too happy about this when Nall spills the beans about their adventure, but she does agree to come along, if for no other reason than to keep the boys out of trouble. Inside the cave, the group fights monsters and makes their way to the White Dragon. After passing his trial, a test aspiring Dragon Masters must undergo in order to prove their worth, the White Dragon Quark gives the group a hunk of, smelly, priceless rock. Quark is impressed with Alex's resolve and allows him to keep the dragon ring he found in the cave, proving he passed the trial and is on his way to becoming a Dragon Master like his hero Dine. The diamond the group collected is worth far more than the shop in Berg can afford to pay for it, so Ramus and Alex attempt to sneak away from Luna and make their way to the port to catch a ride to the biggest city in the world, Meribia. Meribia has shops that could probably pay for the diamond, and that would bring Alex just another step closer to the other dragons. Only problem is the fog is too dense to get through the woods and the group has to turn back, and all spills the beans to Luna yet again. This cat just can't keep it in the bag. Luna eventually calms down and agrees to journey to Meribia with Remus and Alex, and the stage is set for an adventure that will change their lives forever. Along their journey, they meet the arrogant magician Nash from the City of Vane's Magic Guild, who serves under Galien, one of the 4 heroes who protected the goddess Althena and Dragon Master Dine's best friend. Jessica, the daughter of Mel Dialkirk, the governor of Meribia and another of the 4 heroes. Mia, daughter of Lamia, another of the heroes who traveled with Dine. And Kyle, Jessica's brutish, on-again, off-again boyfriend. Each character in Lunar is fleshed out an amazing amount. They have certain stereotypes they may fall into, but they each have their passions and goals and things that drive them. Nash may be a real prick of a spell slinger, but he loves the magic city of Vane more than anything, citing its purpose for eternally protecting the goddess Althena often. He's proud of his work at the guild and the good that he believes magic can do for people. Mia is soft-hearted and unsure of herself as a leader, but cares about the people she works with more than anything. And when pushed, she can achieve great things. Jessica and Kyle, while fighting and acting like they hate each other, prove time and time again that they care more about each other than they let on. And to see a big brute like Kyle do what he has to do to protect Jessica can be really moving, even if it brings a grin to your face listening to this barbarian talk half the time. The battle system in Lunar is rather unique, and is one of the many things that separate the game from its competition. Battles are held on a side view plane and are turn-based, just like you've come to expect from traditional RPGs of the era. What is different about Lunar is that battles are area and range based. That means characters have to walk up to an enemy, attack, and stay there. Magic users can stay put and cast spells from afar, meaning they are less likely to be attacked since they're further back. If a target is outside a character's range, that person will have to use one of their attacks just to move closer to it. Some attacks also hit in certain areas, and picking the right target is essential to do the most damage. For example, Nash's Thunder Bomb can attack a large group of enemies, just like Alex's Explosion Staff. While the battle system is nowhere near as complex as Final Fantasy Tactics or similar games, Lunar's unique take on the traditional turn-based battle system adds a layer of depth and strategy not found in many other games. It becomes increasingly crucial to adjust your party's formation at certain times to give your characters the advantage in a heated battle. Do you spread them out, or do you shove them all in the back out of range for a few turns? It's a fun, different kind of take on a system we've been used to for years. Enemies in the game are pretty typical. Large groups can be harder to take down sometimes just because they outnumber your party in the early portions of the game. Each enemy telegraphs their moves with a different animation before attacking. This helps you plan your next actions for the turn. Do you take out the one ready for a big attack, or do you play it safe and fall back and heal? This helps prevent surprises in battles for enemies you've encountered a few times already. It's really not groundbreaking or revolutionary, but it made battles that much more fun. Boss battles are where Lunar's Silver Star story takes another step away from the traditional styles of other games. Each boss has a set of base stats. Those stats are then multiplied by Alex's level. So if you have a boss with a base HP value of 100 and Alex's level is 15, that boss would have 1500 HP. This prevents the boss fights from being too overly challenging or too easy, and actually helps make each fight feel kind of cinematic, at least later in the game. The first boss on the ship to Meribia is actually fairly challenging if you don't grind a little bit in the woods surrounding the town. The reason is because it's one of the few bosses that recover HP during the fight, and if you never do more damage than it recovers, you'll never win. Luna learns a buff song that raises your character's strength, and it is basically essential for defeating this giant blue drip. The journey from Berg to Meribia is only a small first step in a life-changing journey for Alex. Remus stays behind in Meribia to run a store he takes over from a guy who tried to steal the party's diamond. Nash takes Alex and Luna to meet his master Galien, and Luna is questioning her purpose in life and why she keeps having the same dreams every night. The characters hear rumors about a magic emperor and how singers the world over are disappearing, and everything seems to be getting rather serious all of a sudden. Galien offers Alex a chance to help him with a problem. There's someone claiming to be a dragon master harassing a fishing village, and Galien asks their group to investigate the claims. And maybe then, Alex will be able to learn the locations of the other dragons he has to meet. After defeating the false Dragon Master, Alex and Luna are separated and everything seems to be going downhill. Luna is made to sing for Galleon, Mia's mother, and a group of witches from the Vile tribe who Althena banished to the frontier ages ago. Mia's mother is eventually revealed to have been under a spell that trapped her memory and impersonated by one of the witches. They taunt the group about the coming of the Magic Emperor's rule over the world. Galleon, claiming to be tricked, tasks Alex with taking him to Quark under the pretense that Galleon would become a Dragon Master himself in order to combat the Vile tribe. However, once they arrive, Galleon asks Quark a question about Luna's past, and things go a little crazy once more.
Oh, then the time has finally come. My coming out party can begin. Send in the clowns.
Hi, Althena. What have you done, Galleon?
Not Galleon, dear Quark. Magic Emperor Galleon!
Magic Emperor?
Galleon, no!
No. Galleon, yes! Someday people may mourn this day, but my glorious rule can only begin with your enslavement.
This betrayal from Alex's idol's best friend and a man Alex had just seen fight by his side shocked me as a kid playing this game. Galleon reveals himself to be the Magic Emperor, kidnaps Quark and Luna, and sends fiends from the Vile tribe to Meribia in vain. And he proceeds to have his witches, Zenobia, Royce, and Phaecia, kidnap other singers like Luna. Jessica's father is turned to stone, and Vane's leadership is in shambles. Knowing just how powerful Galleon is, the party needs to try to stay one step ahead of him by finding the other dragons, passing their trials, and allowing Alex to finally become a Dragon Master himself. Becoming a Dragon Master stops being Alex's lifelong dream, and instead becomes a hurdle he has to overcome to save the woman he loves. The way Alex fights for Luna is really heartwarming, because at its core, Lunar is a love story. Lunar's presentation, as you can no doubt tell, is interesting. With animated cutscenes inserted into a 16-bit style game, Lunar is a title that still looks good to this day in my mind. The original Sega CD version, though considered by many to be the real definitive version of the game, does suffer from a, in my mind, not so good color palette. And I don't know, there's something about all the text being in uppercase the whole time that I just don't care for. It's hard to think of Luna as this sweet, charming character I know she is when reading her text is a lot like reading an email from my grandmother. And yeah, the PlayStation version gets a little bit of criticism for its cutesy 16-bit style graphics, but it's aged much better than some of the other games of the era, and it's an art style that I do enjoy. But it isn't for everyone, I'm sure. And even though Sega CD games like Snatcher have tons of voice-acted scenes, the original Silver Star only has about 10-15 minutes of voice-acted scenes, and the same voice actors do come back to reprise their roles for the English PlayStation version, and that voice cast is expanded to allow for even more cutscenes and voice acting. That's amazing, because it's pretty decent voice acting. I mean, who doesn't love Galleon savoring every letter that comes out of his mouth?
My apprentice Nash speaks quite highly of you, boy. He said you passed the trial of the White Dragon. If that's true, perhaps you can help me.
The Saturn version of Lunar the Silver Star story was released twice, one adding support for the Saturn's video card add-on, which allowed MPEG versions of full-motion video to play in certain titles. Saturn games could play video files before this add-on, but they were typically in more compressed formats like Cinepack instead. The Saturn version was then ported to the PlayStation, and that version was localized by the same team who localized the Sega CD original. To talk about Lunar's English release and not mention the localization job by Working Designs would be a criminal act. Working Designs handled the Sega CD originals of both Silver Star and Eternal Blue, as well as the PlayStation Complete versions that were released in the West. Working Designs was well known for their elaborate packaging of games like the Lunar remakes. Sadly, though I've owned the Silver Star story complete since I was 11 in 2001 and got Eternal Blue for my birthday the following year, I only have the game, the special making of discs, and the hardback manual. I don't have the cool map or the soundtrack or even the cool box it came in anymore. But as a kid, this was all neat stuff to get, and I used to listen to the soundtrack on the bus to band trips back in 6th and 7th grade. Getting all this extra stuff was never something that made me want the game. In fact, I had no idea the games came with anything extra until I decided I wanted them. But for a collector, these things are great extras, and honestly, I'm not really a collector. Working Designs is also known for their translations and localizations of the games they brought over. Since CD games were cheaper to produce, plus having a little bit more room than their cartridge contemporaries, Working Designs was able to include things like voice acting, which was almost unheard of at the time in the West. They also enjoyed changing things around with the script, adding pop culture references and hamming up the jokes a little bit more than the source material. While the localization is pretty funny for the most part, some of the references are lost even to me, but it's not like the game's script is required reading for a pop culture class in college. There's enough there to help make players laugh without actually removing them from the world that Lunar creates. Almost every NPC has something to say, and Working Design's unique presentation of the script helps makes the villages and events feel just that more fleshed out and original. It's a charm that I've really yet to see replicated in other series. From silly little quips to hidden jokes and references, and even some crazy sexual comments for the time, Lunar gives the player a reason to want to talk to everyone they come across. In 2005, Working Designs closed their doors, and a discussion about that would be a video on its own. But prior to that, in 2002, the company turned down the rights to localize the Game Boy Advance retelling of the Silver Star in the game Lunar Legend, instead letting Ubisoft have at it. This version is one of the better, more lighthearted games on the GBA, but it is pretty different than the Sega CD or PlayStation older brother. For example, in the PlayStation version, you find Nash trapped in a silly doohickey outside the old hag's house. In Lunar Legend, Nash visits Berg first to pass the trial of the White Dragon himself, and Alex provides his escort. Since full motion video is a little hard on the GBA, stills from Silver Star Story are used, and bigger scenes are presented with large, well-detailed and animated sprites. I actually really like how they made some of these changes. It's the same story, but told just different enough to be interesting. The battle system is much more traditional as it ditches the range-based style of the Sega CD and PlayStation versions, and frankly, the GBA version is amazingly easy. The latest release of the game comes in the form of Silver Star Harmony on the PSP, a really modern upgrade with a different camera perspective, a new scenario that tells part of Diane's story with the other characters, including Galleon, and other new scenario elements during the main plot. This version was handled by Xseed Games, who did a good job of keeping the funny parts of the script around with their own little twist on it while remaining true to the source material, and without encroaching on Working Design's jokes. The battle system also returns to the range-based system of the original and PlayStation versions, which is awesome. And the sprite work and backgrounds of this game are just gorgeous. This is an excellent version of the game and worth looking into. My main gripe with this is that it uses the exact same cutscenes from the Saturn and PlayStation versions with new voice actors. These scenes are 4x3, and while gorgeous, it does feel like a bit of a cop-out. Now granted, animation is expensive to produce, and extra content makes up for this, such as the extra voice-acted scenes not present in the other versions.
Sorry to have kept you waiting, Eiffel.
It's time to return the goddess.
Dragon Master!
I hope you haven't forgotten about us.
Watch out! Please move!
Get your fat butt off me!
How rude! My behind is hardly...
But I would love to see some new, modern animation for this game. I think the voice acting is pretty good too, but John Truitt not being there as Galleon makes me a sad Duke. His replacement just doesn't feel right.
Yes.
And my first order of business shall begin with your enslavement, Quark!
There's not too many secrets to find in the game other than a collection of saucy pictures and a few hidden events, but you'll easily discover everything because Lunar does such a good job of inviting you into its world and making you want to explore every nook and cranny. Now, like I said before, this game makes you care about the characters. When you realize what Galleon's plans are and what he intends to do with Luna, and how he, Luna, and Dragon Master Dyne are all connected, and you see Alex's resolve for saving the woman he loves, it's hard not to care. You can't help but cheer on Alex as he gets closer to Luna, only to have her snatched away by the bad guy time and time again. Galleon is a vile, vile man, sure. But when you see his reasons for his actions, it's hard to not feel sorry for the man whose best friend took a different path than he wanted and helped strip the world of something Galleon held dear. With the main and supporting cast as strong as this, Lunar is more than a video game. It's a storytelling experience that simply needs to be beheld by more people. Lunar the Silver Star is an amazing title for its time, and I honestly believe it holds up well today. The Sega CD original game can be a little hard to look at in places, but the charm and joy is still there, and many players claim it to be the best version. The PlayStation remake was my first visit to the enchanting world of Lunar, and it will probably always remain my favorite. But there are a lot of ways to get into this game, though they can be very, very pricey. I would honestly tell you that if you have the means, you need to experience this game. And while I enjoy the sequel Eternal Blue's gameplay and story maybe just a little bit more, Lunar Silver Star Story will always have a place in my heart as the game that made me experience true emotional ups and downs with a fantastic plot and the perfect characters help flesh it all out. This is simply the most important game that I have ever played, and if nothing else, I hope more people get to experience it soon.